Christianity.
I would expect that he would have ruled based off of his policies, which
What? How's he going to figure his policies out other than what he considers moral in his brain?
So,
Oof.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we do need to separate out religious authority. I don't even think we can. And so if politicians are going to rule from a moral stance, what's going to inform their morals? Well, it's going to be their religion and their dogma.
Right.
So if my dogma is informing my morals, aren't I supposed to rule from my dogma?
Well, so I think
no, because I'm a secular humanist and it's a stupid ideology. But yeah, no, Andrew Wilson's completely right here.
This is kind of like you can be dogmatic without appealing to a dogma. Or you can be, I think a better way to put this, I think you can be secular as a Christian, right? So being secular, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is pretty much just operating outside of religious context, right? So in government, for example, I don't think the Constitution is dogmatic because, as you mentioned, it's amendable. Something like the Bible, right? If that's your point of moral authority, I think you can operate under that. We all have some sort of moral system that we're appealing to. But I think that when push comes to shove, right, if there's an issue like evolution, for example, right, that's a lot of pushback in schools right now. I don't think that you can appeal to evolution being false purely because it contradicts the Bible. I mean, you technically can, but I don't think it's justifiable. Does that make sense? Because it's non-falsifiable. You can't, if you're just going to assume that the Bible is true as your foundation, that's operating dogmatically, and I don't think we can really make progress that way.
Yeah, but that's just assertions, right?
Progress.
Like, let's say that Christians.
Yeah, how can we make progress to transing children and just allowing abortions up to birth and stuff? How can we progress to that level with the pesky old Bible standing in the way?
Let's say they outlawed the teaching of evolution, right? So what would even your argument be? If the argument is we have to outlaw prayer, we have to move prayer out, we have to move God out of schools, we have to move these things out of schools, then when Christians are in charge, why shouldn't you be surprised when they say, oh, well, we're going to move your stuff out. Yeah. Now we're going to move your nonsense out of here, right?
I agree. Like if Christians are empowered, of course, they have the authority to technically.
Plus, evolution is just a theory, right? It's not like it's 100% true. You know, if they're going to criticize the Bible because, well, it's not 100% true, or we don't know if it's true or not, well, then by all means, we should be able to get out evolution because we don't know if it's true. I'm starting to sound like Tucker Carlson. We don't know that. We don't know if it's true. Same thing with like Big Bang Theory and stuff.
Technically do whatever they want.
Yeah, but what my argument is that they have every much right. They have as much right to utilize that political power and authority as secularists do. Secularists and atheists have no leg to stand on when they say, wait a second, Christians aren't allowed to push their power. Yes, they are. If atheists are, Christians are too.
I agree. Maybe the better way to put it is they are legally allowed to. I don't know that ethically you can do whatever you want as well, right? But I don't think it's ethically permissible. I think that this is unethical behavior.
What's unethical about it?
Yeah.
Well, so for example, right, if we're pushing out something like evolution, I think that leads to a lot of downstream effects as far as like anti-science
pushing rhetoric. Out prayer.
How so?
Well,
yeah, exactly.
You would have to.
It's just all about this guy's preference. Like, well, I prefer that we teach evolution, but like we could make the same arguments of why we should keep prayer in school as he can for trying to keep evolution in school.
Admit that when you were a kid, maybe not when you were a kid, but at least when I was a kid, we used to pledge allegiance to the flag, right? Yes. One nation under God. So it gives a reinforcement of patriotism, an idea of solidarity with your countrymen, right? And prayer in school also creates solidarity between people. It gives them purpose, gives them faith. There's all sorts of negative ramifications of pushing it out, right? Oh,
wow, that goes quick.
Yeah, that went real quick.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So far, because I think this is like the first episode of their 1v5, I guess. And so far, what I like about it over the Jubilee, it's less chaotic. Like, I think you could actually have more of a constructive conversation under this, where areas like with the Jubilee thing, it's totally like chaotic. You know, they're kind of talking fast. It's really like fast paced. I forgot what to call it, but it's really fast paced. Where this one's a little bit more calm. I think so far, I would say that maybe give it a little bit longer than 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, if anything, maybe. Yeah, because 5 minutes, I felt like they were kind of getting into it, and then boop, that's it.
Go ahead.
All right. So your stance is Christians have the right to rule as much as
The Drunk Debunk Show, huh? That's what this guy hosts.
secularists?
Yeah.
Okay. So as a Christian, I can't disagree with
he's
you
a
too
Christian.
much on that. However, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you shouldn't be in power. But what you do with your morals and values should not be portrayed in how you rule. And I'm a big believer in church and state, or separation of church and state. So, there's a place for the religious aspect of your life and your upbringing and all that, but it shouldn't be brought into more of a power stance.
You can't separate church and state. Let me explain why. Have you ever elected a politician who's a Christian?
Yes.
Did you expect that when he ruled from his moral stances, which were informed by Christianity?
I would expect that he would have ruled based off of his policies, which
What? How's he going to figure his policies out other than what he considers moral in his brain?
so
Oof.
Just give me a second here.
Sure.
A little nervous.
Take your time.
So I feel like the specific people that I would
How much time do we got left? Oh, about 3.5 minutes. Shit.
vote for elect. His policies would specifically be how I would feel, would not be based off of his Christian morals, and that's how I vote.
So where do you want him to find his morals? Like in the trash can, or like if you're electing a person to be who's a Christian into office, right? Where do you want him to get his information for how he's going to rule morally? If you're a Christian and you point to some other stance and say that's more moral than my stance, then why are you a Christian?
Give me a second.
How much time do you got left? A little under 3 minutes. Shit.
Shit.
How much time left?
Can you say that last part?
Yeah. If you elect somebody
goodness.
to represent you in your morals in government, who's a Christian, why would you want him to rule from another stance other than Christianity? You would be then saying that other stance is more moral than his. So why would you be a Christian to begin with?
I mean, being a Christian is kind of, personally, it's more of a comfort for me, knowing that there's a higher power, a creator.
But it doesn't inform your morals?
Where my morals come from is kind of a collective of what you were talking with FTFE yesterday, a collective of experiences and I do lean.
So Christianity is purely cosmetic for you?
I tend to hope it's not. But
I mean, it sounds like it's purely cosmetic and you're getting your moral information from intuition.
Yeah.
Like, this feels good. This doesn't feel good. But Christian ethics come from the teachings and dogmas of Jesus Christ, right? The laid foundations of Jesus Christ. And if you move against those, you're moving into Antichrist territory, right? You're being Antichrist. So, you can't like pick and choose Christian ethics, right?
Sounds like that dude that Andrew's debating sounds like he's just a secular humanist or an atheist, but that believes in God. That's it. Like he believes in God, and that's about it.
That's a fair assessment.
Man, but it's all about his feelings.
All right, I gotta concede.
Okay.
Dang,
this
this
isn't
guy,
really a topic that I discussed too much.
Yeah.
What a waste of time.
No problem.
Why did Modern day debates must have been really hard up to find someone if they just allowed that guy and they kept it in. I mean, for real. Like there was no backups they had or anything. Like, oh man, this guy was kind of a dud. Let's kind of like edit out his segment and then we could get in some other guy.
Nice to meet you.
Lutch.
Too, man.
So what
Who
was
is
the,
it?
the
Mexican
claim
CM Punk over
You
here?
don't remember the claim? It's that Christians have as much of a right to rule as secularists or atheists.
again? Okay, I'm a little confused as to why.
Oh,
that,
Indian Jesus. Oh, I've heard of this guy. Indian Jesus. Where did I see this guy? I saw him on Rumble, I believe. But he was on someone's show or man, I forgot where I seen him, but I've seen this guy before.
I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. What part do you
You don't
think
think that a lot of people would disagree with it?
I think
Then why do they get upset when Christians are in office and they make policy based on Christianity?
because they make policy based on Christianity, not
Yeah.
the fact that they are Christian.
Well, okay. How do you want a Christian to morally inform their view for policy making if it's not through Christianity?
I'm not saying that it can't be through Christianity. It can't be because of Christianity.
Why?
Because it's not a Christian nation.
Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? If a politician, right, you vote him in office, he's a Christian. He's going to be making moral decisions on behalf of the electorate, right?
Right.
Where do you want him
Are
to?
all those
Where do you want him
everyone in
to
the
draw
electorate
his information from?
from the electorate? So with
What?
the electorate's not all religious.
What if the electorate asks him to do something immoral?
Well, then that's a completely different.
All
thing.
right, then he should be informing his viewpoint from his ethics, which is going to be Christianity,
I mean, it's
right?
not a dichotomy. You don't either have Christian ethics or completely non-Christian. You can take your Christian ethics and apply them to a secular situation. No.
Sure, you can apply your Christian ethics
Yeah.
So
to
that,
secularists,
so
but
that-
that would be ruling
so we
secularists
agree.
with Christian ethics.
right, but then we agree
Mhm.
that there's no issue with Christians or seculars having power.
No, I don't think we do agree. So your idea here is you take issue if Christians make policy based on Christianity.
No, because of Christianity. This is the law because
doesn't make any
Christianity
sense.
said. Not I am a Christian. I think this is bad, and also other people who are not Christians also think it is bad.
Let's say
So-
that other people who aren't Christians do think it's
So then we
bad.
go back to the electorate. What does the
Yeah,
electorate say?
we're gonna, but the
So if
politicians
the
are.
electorate happens to be Christian,
Yeah.
then we're
Why
gonna
is
have
there a
more
problem
Christian
with
ethics in
Wha-
politics?
Why is there a problem with the creation of an imposition of your ethical view if you're in a position of power on people who don't want it?
For the same reason you wouldn't want Sharia law.
But right now we have secularists who tear down 10 commandments. They tear
Mhm.
down prayer in school. They tear down all sorts of symbols that Christians care about. They tear down, in fact,
Based on
they
the
push
electorate.
they push
right?
through, no, not just based on the electorate, based on their agenda. There's a lot of things that people will get put in, politicians get put in office, right?
Mhm.
By an electorate. Sometimes maybe they're only going to go for one term, or maybe it's their last term. They don't do anything based on what the electorate's saying, but based on their own ideology, based on their own worldview.
So
Atheists
they're
rule
just doing
from
things randomly that nobody
sometimes,
I
but
mean,
atheists.
I don't necessarily disagree.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter, the fact of the point is that is irrelevant to whether it is done because of Christianity. If they're doing things on their own because because they think it's a good idea, and then secularly from a Christian perspective, people can say, yes, I like that. That's a good idea. But people from a secular non-religious people can also say, I think that's a good idea. And as an electorate, as a non-Christian nation, or not officially a Christian nation, obviously most people are Christian in this nation, but not everybody. And so that's the point of having the republic, that everybody.
When
gets
somebody
represented.
says something's right and wrong, where are they getting that information?
I think I agree with you. Even as an atheist, I think we all, at least in America, are pulling from Christian, I'll say values.
Christian
more than-
ethics.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so
So if Christians,
but that's the dichotomy that I was bringing up before. You're saying as if you have to ignore Christianity
yeah,
in order to be a politician. I don't think anybody's making that claim.
no, I'm saying that politicians rule from atheism or rule from Christian ethics. They either rule from a lack of religion or through religious informed
So
ethics.
I mean, and then still, I don't have an issue with your Christian ethics informing your secular decision. That this is the law.
No, how about your Christian ethics informing your Christian decision?
But that's
when in the
not,
rule of
I mean, if you want to
policy?
change
Yeah.
the government to be a Christian nationalist government, go. I mean,
How would that
go
be
and-
changing the government?
Because that's not the way it is.
Yes, it is. The way of the government right now is that you can indeed craft policy based around Christian ethics. When you say because of Christianity, it doesn't mean anything. Like, oh, my morals come from Christianity because of the Bible. It's like, yeah, So what though? I don't understand what the distinction
Yeah,
here
I don't
is.
The
understand either.
distinction is the reason that this is a law. I think this is you might
What's
think
what's
this,
a law?
whatever the law is. You
Yeah.
might think X is a good law because it aligns with your Christian ethics. I might think X is a good law because of whatever other reason.
What I'm saying is
the fact that your Christian ethics also inform us to the same conclusion. The point is that we come to the conclusion, we vote on that conclusion, not you have your ideology and therefore you win.
Nobody's disputing that atheists can sometimes agree with Christians, or that Christians can sometimes agree with atheists when it comes to prescriptive claims and policy.
Okay.
That's not my claim. Mike. All right, thank you.
See, that's the only thing. It's just like, that's the thing. Like, when these debates are good, like this, like him and the first guy, when it starts to get good and you start to get into the meat of the topic, it cuts off. And so I think that's my only feedback so far, is maybe longer times, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 10 minutes might be the magic number. Who knows? Maybe they should experiment a little bit. This is their pilot episode, their first episode of this. Overall, it's good so far. Like, it's good. Again, I prefer this organized time style compared to the Jubilee one, where it's just chaos and they have to fight for the seat and they get to vote other people off. I feel like this leads to more productive conversations. Again, my only criticism, I think the time's a little too short. But I didn't understand what this guy was trying to say. Like, yeah, but because of Christian ethics, or because of the Bible, or because of Christianity, like, I don't, yeah, like Andrew Wilson was saying, I don't understand the distinction he was trying to make. That's leave a comment in the comment section below. Give this video a like if you liked it. If you really liked it, please subscribe to my channel. I have more debate videos just like this one. Also, subscribe to Modern Day Debates. That's where this video is from. They have way more debates like this on their channel that I think you'll enjoy.